Hello, this is Mike at GameFromScratch, and welcome to Bowling with Unity. This is the second part in the Bowling with series. We already did one on the Play Canvas game engine, and essentially what we're doing is going through all of the various different game engines. Well, I guess all is a big claim, but several of the most popular 3D game engines and implementing the same game in each one. It's not really a tutorial, but kind of is, but it shows you the workflow and a direct comparison of the workflow between the various different game engines. So hopefully this proves useful to some of you out there. Now, if you happen to be a Patreon backer, first off, my thanks. But second, if you go there now, you should be able to see the PDF version of this document, of this process we're about to go through, as well as the game kit, which is basically all of the Unity project files, the FBX files, the textures, etc., of what we're working on. Don't worry, you don't need to be a patron to find this useful, and I will also have the web version with all the code references, etc., up on GameFromScratch very, very soon. But if you are a patron, once again, thank you for your support. Now, essentially, this is the quote-unquote game we're creating. It's a simple bowling game. Arrow keys to move the ball left and right. It's all using physics. Spacebar to throw the ball. You hear there's sound plays on when we hit. I can hit the B key to reset the ball, the R key to reset the pins, and that's essentially the game. You know, nothing extremely huge here, but that's the idea behind it. It's supposed to be kind of the equivalent of a Hello World, something I can implement on as many game engines as possible in a reasonable amount of time. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Now, as I said earlier, this isn't really a tutorial per se, because I'm not going to be going into a lot of details of what I'm working on. And also, I don't claim to be an expert on many of these engines, so I may be doing things in ways that are not, you know, according to Hoyle. So some of these things may not be best practices by any means at all. So take some of what I do as potentially a grain of salt, but you are going to see the entire process for each game engine. And again, I'm not going to go into too much explanation on each one because we don't want this to be outrageously long, this video in general. So we'll call this YouTube Bowling. We will throw this in the temp directory. Sure, 3D, don't need analytics, don't need assets, create the project. So that's the beginning. You go ahead and create your project. Now, we're going to start things off by basically just raw bringing in all of the assets we need. Those are available. Obviously, if you don't have them, you'll have to create your own, but creating bowling assets is a fairly simple process. But here I am. I'm just going to go on in. I believe they're all in the FBX. Actually, if I go into projects, I go into the previous project I've already done. Handle enough, there are all of our raw assets. Now what we've got here are FBX files, which are 3D models, the textures that go along with them, a couple of wave files that we're going to be using for various different sound effects, and then we have a title screen that we're going to show for a splash screen, and that's where we're going to start things off. So just bring your assets in, just drop them into the assets folder. And this is one area where Unity does extremely well. Yep, make that a normal map. All right, so there are our assets ready to work with. And now, where is our scene? We don't have the scene saved yet, so let's go ahead and save our scene. And I'm going to try to match the names so that I call this title screen. All right, title screen. All right, so we now have our default scene, not a whole lot going on with it. Now, for the title scene, we're going to set this up. Basically, we're just going to show a graphic and then move on when something happens. So we need to do a couple of setup preps here first. We need to change our camera. First off, I'm going to set the clear flex. We don't want a skybox in the background. In fact, we don't really want anything. So we can either do a solid color or a don't clear. And the next thing we want to do is switch our projection out to orthographic. This is basically means that as the camera gets further away, it doesn't scale down. You can look at an orthographic as a 2D camera and a perspective camera as a 3D camera. That's oversimplifying things, but yeah, it makes sense as a general definition anyways. Now we want to go ahead and actually create the UI canvas. So come on over here, click Create, 2D Object, Create UI, and then we want a canvas. Like so. And with the canvas selected, oh, I don't want to parent you to the, so we didn't want to accidentally parent, I should have had the camera selected when I did that because I ended up parenting it to the camera, which was a mistake. But I do want to parent this one to our canvas, and this is a panel, like so. Now what we're going to want to do is apply our title screen graphic down here to the panel, but we want to change something on it first. We just click it. So this is how the assets, these are raw assets we're dealing with right now. What we want to do is change the way that it's handled. So you come up here to texture type, and instead of default, switch it to 2D, sprite, 2D, and UI, and let's apply that. So now we go back and select the panel in the hierarchy view here, and we can go ahead and pick the source image now, or we can just drag and drop, like so. So now if we scroll out here, you can see our game setting up, like so. We go ahead and press play now, and we are partway there. Pretty simple so far. So there is our title screen that is going to play when our game starts. Now we want to get a little bit of background music going. And this is where you're going to start seeing the component nature of Unity in action. We're just going to come down here to either canvas or panel. We'll stick with panel, and we'll add a component to it. And we'll go to audio, and then audio source, like so. And we will just drag over our song. Our song is awful, but there it goes. So you can actually preview that song if you want. So our sound effect is simply going to be, where's preview? Where's play? You might be able to right click and play. So that's our sound effect. Nothing really special going on there. But we do want to change a couple of properties on it. So with our panel selected, now we have this audio source here. What we want to do is switch to loop. And we also want to ensure play on awake is set. So basically when this component is created, it will automatically start playing, and it will play it over and over and over again. So pretty much what we want. Now the next thing up is we want to be able to get off of this screen. It's going to get awfully annoying to listen to that sound effect very long. So we're going to want to create a C# script here that simply changes our scene out. Now in order to do this, we're going to actually need to create a scene to change out to. So just come on down here, go create scene, and we will dub the game scene. And this is basically where the 99% of our game is actually going to exist. But we still have, you can see over here, title screen is ultimately what we're dealing with, which is exactly what we want. So now we'll come back here, we'll go ahead and create another asset, and this time we are going to create a C# script. And we will call it panel script. Obviously, I'm just matching up so that I match my written version of this so that if you're following along at home, it all makes sense. But there we have our script in. Let's double click that up and it will open up in our editor of choice, in my case, Visual Studio 2017. And we are going to write one of the simplest scripts you've ever seen. So we are in our update code here, and what I want to do is go ahead and set in update. Here, let me zoom this in a bit so it's easier to read. We want to do if input.get mouse button up 0. 0 is a left click, by the way. Oops. Scene man. Oh, we need to add a scene manager. Just a second. Unity Engine. Using Unity Engine dot scene management. So if we left click, we go ahead and do scene manager dot load scene, and the name of the scene we saved it as. So pretty simple. All this is going to do is when we click the one scene, it will go ahead and basically go to that other scene. So that's how you transition between different scenes in Unity, or at least one way you can. Now we have one last task we need to perform, so we'll get on back to Unity. I'll leave Visual Studio open. We will be back here. So head on back over to Unity here. We go to File, Build Settings, and we go Add Open Scenes, like so. So this scene will now be included as part of the build. And we're actually going to need to do the same process when we switch to the title screen. So let's go ahead and exit that. And we are now done with this guy. Let's switch over to the title scene. We will save that. Oops, switch over, sorry, wrong scene, game scene. Where did you go? There it is. Switch over to the game scene, and we will now go ahead, back up to build settings, and we will add this guy as well. So basically these two scenes are now included as part of our game. Now, in the order here, this 0 is important. That means that the title scene will be loaded first, so we will get the performance we want. Let's make sure that everything is working. So we'll go ahead and do a build. Oh, we did a build of our game. All right, let me switch back to the title scene. Do a build. So there is our Bowling Master title. Why am I not getting audio, or am I getting audio and I just can't hear it? No, my audio is on, so I have something to debug. Just one second. Oh, yeah, I think I just did an act of stupid. So making sure that I'm not playing, because changes made while you were playing will be discarded. Yeah, I forgot to attach my script here. So basically all we need to do is go ahead and take the panel script and apply it to our object. Why are you not... Panel script. Attach. Can't add script component panel script because the script class cannot be found. Try that again. With a build done. Oops, that was stupid. Panel script onto panel. All right, give me 1 second, please. Okay, this is an act of sheer stupidity, but for some reason, the rename order I did wasn't right. So it was created as new behavior script. And what we need to do is rename it to panel script, like so. So that was the underlying issue there. Now we go on back over, here, let me do a build. Head back on over to Unity. And now we should be able to simply drag and drop that script on. And now we're done. Now we go ahead and play it. Why do I have 2 copies of the script attached now? Okay, and now with my script there and my audio source redefined again, I don't know where it went, but I'll go ahead and press play here. And there you go. So there is our title screen. We left click it and we transition to our other scene. So there is the title screen out of the way, and we've seen a lot of the stuff that we're actually going to be using in the future, you know, attaching a script, components, audio components we're actually going to very specifically use. So now that we're in our game itself, we need to do a little bit of setup. Let's start off by going ahead and actually creating our bowling lane. We imported it here. You can see it's right here. Just basically drag it into the scene. Come on. What are you doing to me? Oh, I'm playing. Got it. You know what? I hate that about Unity, to be honest. You know, it's nice to be able to tinker on something and as you're making changes, etc. So you have live changes and updates, but I hate that it unrolls them all when you stop pressing play. I screw that up all the time. So anyways, we're now properly in our game scene for real. We're not currently running our game. Now I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop in their bowling lane. In theory. Am I on the texture? No, that's the bowling lane. Oh, yeah, I am an idiot. Sorry, I am trying to drag and drop the texture into the world. Like I said, I don't use these engines all the time, so you're going to see some awkwardness from you while I'm going through this. So let's actually bring the proper bowling lane into the world like we just did, like so. And what we want to do is make sure that it's positioned basically at the origin. So just zero everything out. And then press F to... Ooh, I don't want to put F into location. We also want to do... I don't know why this rotation comes out as almost 90. But like so. All right. So bowling lane is now in. Press F to focus on it. And there you see. So we're in. Our texture is a little faded. Probably not exactly what we want, but let's take a look at a couple. One thing I found is that the texture... oh, we're also right below. No, we're not. Okay, undo that. When it comes into the texture itself, I find the normal map that's defined here is far too strong. So I'm going to just come in here and jack that down to like 0.2, like so. And we're going to change our render mode to opaque. There. Perfect. So now we have our lane in the world. We want to actually add a couple of things to it. First off, we're going to create it so that physics work on this guy. And that means adding a component. And that component that we want to add is physics box collider. Now, the cool thing about Unity is it automatically sizes it to the underlying mesh, which keeps us from having to do any additional work, which I really appreciate. And to be honest, that's it. Our bowling lane is now done. Next up, we need to deal with the pins. And that's pretty much the same process. So we're going to just drag and drop in our pin into the world, like so. Hit F to focus in on it. And that actually, surprisingly, is exactly where I want it to be, I think. Let's look from above. Wow, that was, yeah, that was dead on. I'm impressed. All right, so our first pin right there, pretty happy with that. It came in looking exactly about the size we want it to be, etc. Not a more effects to do here, but one thing I'm finding is I don't like the default lighting here. I don't want to deal with the lighting at all in this actual example. So what I'm going to do is switch instead from directional lighting, which is what's causing our bowling pin to be very, very dark here. And we'll just go ahead and delete the directional light in the scene. Now, this probably isn't the result you wanted either. So what we're going to do is come up here to Window, go into Lighting, and go to Settings. And we are going to just go ahead and set Environment Lighting Source instead of from the skybox to a color. And then for the color, we'll make it white. And there you go, ta-da, we don't have any more pesky lighting issues to deal with at all. So that was that. Now we got to set up a couple things on this pin. So we want to be able to, deal with physics in this world. And that means setting up, once again, a physics collider. So physics will go in here and we'll create, again, a box collider is probably your best fit. And as you can see, it automatically sized it about perfectly. So now we need to go ahead and add another physics component this time. Physics rigid body. Now, a rigid body is basically the physics controller. So there's a box collider on our lane, but it's not going to move with the scene. It's just there to be collided with. Well, in the case of our pin, we actually want it to be part of the physics simulation, which is what the rigid body does to it. And there's a number of settings here you can control to, constrain which ways rigid body works, etc. And probably the most important one here is mass. And I don't really know what mass a bowling pin is going to be. I'm just going to know relative to the ball. And the ball's going to be about 3 times the mass of the pin, so I'll assume that's, I don't know, kilo, so 1 kilogram. So these are pretty heavy bowling pins. But as long as your bowling ball is proportionately stronger, it really doesn't matter. Now, one other thing we're going to want to do here is come up to this tag section. We're going to be identifying the bowling pins by this tag. So we're going to go ahead and add a tag, and then we'll click plus here, and we will call it pin. And click save. And save a little bit of time for later on. We're also going to pin the ball. Sorry, not pin the ball. We're going to tag the ball later on. So we'll create that tag as well. And now select your pin again and come on up here and in tags, select pin. So this way we can identify all the pins as pins. Another thing we might want to do here is rotate it. Ooh, that's not it. 90. That way our lovely logo is showing us relative to the ball. And amazingly enough, we are now done with the pin. All we really have left to do is to make more of them. Now what you're going to want to do is come over here to your scene hierarchy or your scene graph and do a duplicate. And what this will do is take all of the colliders, so it'll have the rigid body, physics body, and the tag we just defined. It will create those for us and then size these out. If you're a 5-pin fan, you're going to duplicate this 5 times. Otherwise, you're going to duplicate it 10, or I guess if you want to create your very first 7-pin bowling game, that is your option at this point. But just go ahead and create 7 roughly laid out pins. So, yeah, one last duplicate. All right. So that is solid. Now what we need to do is create a bowling ball. Mostly just to show a different way of doing things, we're going to create the bowling ball procedurally in Unity. So first things first, let's actually go ahead and create it. Come up here to Game Object, 3D Object, and obviously a sphere makes most sense. You can tweak the size however you see fit. You just want to have it central, like so. Yeah, it's not bad. That is our bowling ball. Now let's apply some color to our bowling ball. So just go ahead down here and create a material, like so. Let's see, a standard shader is fine. Albedo, which is your color, we'll go ahead and we're going to create a red bowling ball. And if you want to have a bit of a metallic hue to it, you can see in the preview down here what we're doing. So you can change the metallicness, like so, and the smoothness, like so, until you get basically what you want in a bowling ball. I'm good with that. Now let's go ahead and select our bowling ball again. Sphere. Okay, so first thing we should do is rename this guy to bowling ball. Drop our material into, actually let's give it a name. Bowling ball. Let's drop bowling ball. Oops, I have not selected anymore. Get our bowling ball back here. Replace the material. Come on. Boom. So our bowling ball now has a red material, and you can play with the size as you wish. you know what, in some honesty here, nah, that's about right. Yeah, I'll stick with that size. Now what we need to do is go ahead and add some physics to this guy. So we are going to go ahead and add components just like we did before. Physics, we are going to be adding a sphere collider instead of a box collider, but really that's the only difference. And once again, nicely it auto sizes it for us. Go back, add another component, and this one we are going to add physics again. It is a rigid body. Rigid body settings, and really the only thing we want to do, like we said before, is change out that mass so that it'll behave a little bit different. You don't want the pins knocking down the bowling ball, so obviously you want the bowling ball to be a little bit heavier than the pins. And we go ahead, we'll just drag this guy up a little bit, we'll play our scene, and boom. So here you can see the physics in action behind the scenes. Nothing really exciting yet, but definitely on our way. And what we're going to do is apply the majority of logic using is going to be applied to the bowling ball itself. So there's our ball, there are our pins. What we probably want to do is move our ball back through the throwing line as opposed to being where it is now. And now we're going to do a little bit of setup for a little bit later on. Next up comes code. But first we're going to, like I said, we're going to use the bowling ball as sort of the code holder. And so it's going to get a couple things that probably don't make a whole lot of sense to, but this is like our player in the world. You know, so if you were your player controller normally, well, our bowling ball is our player in this particular instance. And we're going to go ahead and add an audio file. This is exact same as before, audio source. Different sound this time. It's that bowling pin hit sound. Just drag that over like so. The only thing we want to change here is so it doesn't automatically play. We're going to play this one using code as opposed to having it play automatically when we start. And now it's time for a little bit of code. So let's go ahead and create another C# script. This one we will dub bowling ball. And hopefully when I open this one up, reload the solution, in comes bowling ball, and this time it nicely renamed it for us. So I don't know what went wrong with Unity before. It should have automatically done the rename on the class, but sadly it didn't. So now what I'm going to do is the magic of copy and paste code. I don't want you to watch me write all this code out. I'll go through a very quick overview of what it does. So I'll select everything and replace it. Whew, you're not happy. Probably just a save. Let's go ahead and do a build and see if it's actually angry. Ooh, it really is angry. All right. Oh, I've definitely screwed up my cut and pasting. Okay, 1 second. I will undo my cut and paste. The moral of the story here, kids, is you do not copy and paste from a rich text file. I basically pasted that code in from the PDF. And that was not a good call. So there it is, pasted in from the actual code document. And let's do a quick run through of what we're doing here. There's not a lot of magical code going on here. This guy is important. We're publicly exposing an asset called force. This is a floating point value, and this is going to determine the speed at which our ball is thrown. And we're going to come back to that in just 1 second. These two are basically what we're doing here is saving a copy of the locations of all the pins and the ball when we start the game up. This means so later on we can press the B key to reset the ball or the R key to reset everything. So that way, you know, after you've thrown and knocked down all your pins, you can get them back again. And yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing here. We're basically finding all of the game objects with the name of pin, and we're going through and we are copying out the locations of those. We also track the ball location, and that's it for the initialization. Now, in the update, this is the code that's called every pass through the game loop. We check for various key presses. If we press the spacebar key, we're going to apply a whole lot of force defined by our force variable to the ball. In other words, we're going to throw the ball. Left and right, we're also going to add a little bit of force, but a whole lot less, and we're adding it as an impulse instead of a constant force. So it's going to be a lot slower, a lot lower. So basically just adding 1 unit of force. I forget the unit of force. Is it Newton? But anyways, we're adding 1 unit of force in the one direction, or if we want to go to the right direction, we're adding -1 units of force. This basically allows us balls to go left and right. And then as I was mentioning earlier, if you press the R key, that basically resets our scene. And what we do here is basically find all the pins and then apply them to the saved settings. And then we do the same thing for the ball. So we're just basically resetting all of the values back to their starting point. And also, since these are physical objects, they may currently have a velocity or an angular velocity. Make sure you reset both of those values as well, or your pins are going to immediately spin off into space for whatever value they had before. Here we do the same thing on the B key, but we're just handling the ball. So basically just resetting the ball condition. If you were a little bit more adventurous than I was here, I would probably take this code and that code and make it into a function and, call it reset ball and perform it as a little bit cleaner, but I didn't. Finally, here we got, if you press the escape key, we're just going to quit the application. Nothing really magical there. And finally, we have this guy right here. Basically, this is an on callback for when a collision occurs. So when this object, which is our bowling ball, collides with another object, what we do is we check to see what that other object is. If it has the tag of pin, it means we hit a pin. And in that case, we go ahead and play that audio file we just attached. So I'm going to go ahead and build that. So we're going to go back. So it's going to play the audio source attached to this component. And if we go back over to Unity, we will see our bowling ball. That audio source is this guy that we defined. We plays this hit sound effect. We have, okay, so our rigid body is defined. The last thing we need to do is attach our script to our bowling ball. So bowling ball script, bring that guy over to the bowling ball, attach it out. Now remember that force value. This is the direction to go. We want to go along the Z axis, so basically throwing it this way. And through trial and error, I found about 2400 is a good value to go with. But obviously, since it is a value that is defined here, you can play with it, tweak it to your heart's content without having to jump back into your code, which is why you would publicly expose an asset like we have. And now, with that done, the last thing we probably need to do is position our camera. So let's bring this guy over to this way, like so. And nice thing, you can see the preview right here. We want to go ahead now and rotate him like so. All good. And now we want to rotate him like so. All good. And we want to translate him. Oops, wrong one. Like so. All right, so there is our camera looking down at our scene. Our scene is all set up. Now is where I find out if I screwed anything up. We go ahead and press play. And now left arrow, we move the one way. Right arrow, we move the other way. And in retrospect, that's a really big bowling ball. And then space bar to throw. And ta-da! You just created a bowling game in Unity in about, well, exactly 27 minutes with my screwing up in there. As you can see, the real strength of Unity here is to bring in assets really easily, really clean. We never messed around with assets at all. Basically, we brought them in, and it's, once I stopped trying to drag the texture into the screen and instead dragged in the bowling ball, things got much better. Now, if I go ahead and press B, we see why there's an error down here. Object is set to instance of an object. R, yeah, so my code has an error in it. 1 second. Oh yeah, that's my error. Remember when I created the tag or the pin earlier, ball? Yeah, there it is, and I didn't actually apply it. So, and by the way, I believe this find object with tag thing is a very expensive thing to do. So it's not something you want to do every frame by any means. But in this case, we're basically only doing it when you reset or when you initialize, so it's completely fine. Also, since this is actually attached to the bowling ball, I don't really need to do it this way. This is done for consistency. We actually could just get the game object. We could probably go basically this.gameObject .transform.position and get rid of this completely. But I am staying consistent here, so let's go ahead and fix my error. So our bowling ball, like so. Come up here and add the tag of ball. All right, now we go ahead and run this. In theory, ball's hit. I hit the R key, it resets everything back. I can do it again, like so. And then I hit just B, just reset just the bowling ball. And a neat quirk is you can actually add English when you throw, which is a curve when the ball is in motion, by hitting the arrows as it's going. So I hit R and we're back. And that is it. That is a complete game in Unity. Let's actually do it from the very beginning. So we will show the whole thing. Or actually, let's go ahead and build it. Build and run. And don't forget, so you have had to have added your 2 screens in. So build and run, like so. Yeah, sure. Bowling. It's creating our game. And if it's done everything right, we will get our title screen up first. We will click through our title screen and we will start bowling. And I'll stop doing that because that probably sounds really annoying on the other end of the microphone. All right, let's play. All right, so let's click and strike. I guess for the comedically large bowling ball, it's very easy to throw strikes. But that is it for now. That concludes it. I hope you found that useful. I hope you'd like to see this with other game engines as well. I intend to do a number more engines, actually. I've already got the code working in Godot, Unreal Engine, Atomic Engine, so hopefully you'll see those coming up soon. Again, if you are a patron backer, all of this stuff, the project file, the resources, all that stuff are available on there. But even if you're not, don't worry. All of the code, the text version of this will be linked down below as soon as I publish that out. I hope you did find that useful. If you did, please do, of course, click like. And if you want to see how this series develops, please do click subscribe. Again, if you want to see me cover certain specific game engines, do let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of this game? What do you think of the Unity process? Are you a Unity developer and saw something that I really screwed up and everyone else should know? Please do let me know that as well down below. All right, that's it for now. I will see you all later. Goodbye.